"Daddy, she looks like Mommy." The blind date had been empty until the CEO's daughter invited the poor mom to join. Amber Wells stepped into the cafe, taking a careful breath. The place was charming in a gently worn way. Wood floors that creaked underfoot, pale green walls hung with vintage frames, and a single piano waiting quietly in the corner. It was a blind date morning, arranged by an app. Her friend had insisted she go. "Just 1 hour," her friend said. "You might surprise yourself." So here she was, wearing a dress she'd picked 2 nights ago, her blonde hair pulled into a low ponytail, trying to believe that maybe, just maybe, something new could begin. She found the table marked reserved and approached. Only 1 chair was pulled out. The setup matched what she knew of the app. Someone was meant to join, but as she got closer, she noticed a little girl in a pink dress sitting there, legs swinging, back turned toward the door. The girl stared out the window like she was waiting for something bigger than brunch. "Sweetheart, are you waiting for someone?" Amber asked softly, lowering herself into the empty chair and setting her purse by her feet. The girl turned slowly. Her dark eyes studied Amber's face with quiet intensity. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "You look like someone from my dreams." Amber blinked, startled by the tenderness in her tone. For a moment, she forgot the usual heaviness of being a single mom, forgot the loneliness, the feeling of being invisible. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. The little girl's gaze lingered. "You have Mommy's hair," she said. Amber's heart caught in her throat. She leaned closer, meeting the child's eyes. The girl looked down, then back up again. "Will you stay? Just for a bit?" she asked. "He's always serious when he's alone." The girl pointed toward the empty chair across from them. Amber hesitated, her world narrowing to the quiet hum of the cafe, the weight of the moment. She looked at the empty seat, then at the child's hopeful face. "Okay," she said gently. "I'll stay." Moments later, the cafe door opened. A tall man stepped in, his coat draped over one arm, his shoes polished, his presence controlled. Amber could tell instantly this was someone used to command. Tailored suit, steady stride, every gesture measured. He paused when his eyes found the scene before him, the girl and the stranger at his table. His breath hitched. "Daddy, doesn't she look like Mommy?" the girl asked, her voice clear and bright enough to make people turn their heads. The man froze mid-step. Amber jumped to her feet, cheeks flushing. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. "I thought this table was mine." "I didn't mean to—" He lifted a hand, stopping her gently. His voice was soft but firm. "You're at the right table." She blinked, unsure she heard him right. He pulled out the chair for her. "Please," he said. Amber sat again, quietly stunned. The man looked at his daughter with something that hovered between relief and grief. "Emma seems to know more than we do," he murmured. Amber swallowed, her pulse quickening. His eyes flicked to her hair, the same soft blonde his late wife once had, and something in his expression shifted. Not shock, not comparison, but the weight of a memory rediscovered. A hush fell over the cafe. Morning light filtered through the windows, painting soft circles across their table. The little girl in pink, the quiet stranger, and the man trying not to fall apart. Amber glanced at Emma, then at the man. She thought of her own child, her own loss, and the fragile hope that maybe, for just this morning, the empty seat wasn't empty anymore. The cafe's rush eased into a warm lull. Plates clinked, steam curled from fresh cups, and the scent of cinnamon pastries lingered. Amber sat between Emma and Logan in a corner booth with a vase of daisies. Emma stirred her cocoa with great care, her pink dress fluttering each time she laughed. Logan's coffee sat untouched, like a letter waiting to be opened. Amber watched Emma scoop a bit of whipped cream, take a brave sip, and smile in delight. Amber smiled too, quietly grateful for the moment, even as she felt the delicate tension between father and daughter. Logan traced the rim of his mug, his gaze distant. Then Emma looked up, her voice soft but sure. "Do you think people in heaven miss us too?" The question landed like a breeze through a closed window, quiet, unexpected, and full of meaning. Amber glanced at Logan. His eyes had darkened with memory, his lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't respond. She turned back to Emma and reached across the table, gently touching the girl's small hand. "I think they miss us every day," Amber said softly. "That's why they send reminders, a song on the radio, a scent in the air, a kindness we didn't expect." Emma's eyes widened. She nodded slowly, as if she'd just understood something for the very first time. Logan inhaled, a deep, unsteady sound that carried something more than regret, something closer to release. His shoulders, tense since the morning began, finally relaxed. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. It wasn't forced. It was real, the kind of quiet laugh that slips out when you forget how long you've kept your heart closed. Emma pointed at him, grinning. Daddy laughed. Logan's gaze flicked from Amber to his daughter, and this time his smile reached his eyes. Amber felt her chest loosen, something tender unfolding inside her. This moment wasn't about Coco or coincidence. It was about connection. The beginning of something neither of them had planned. They began to talk, slowly at first, about the little things. Emma's latest drawing at school, a spaceship shaped like a shoe. Ella, the goldfish Amber's daughter, had named last week. How spring seemed late this year. Emma talked and talked, her legs swinging, curls bouncing, stories tumbling out like popcorn. Amber listened with genuine warmth, asking questions, laughing at the right moments. Logan watched, answering occasionally, but mostly letting their voices wash over him like a tide he hadn't realized he missed. When Amber finally noticed the time, she smiled apologetically. "I should probably head out soon. My daughter will be home and I promised pancakes." Emma's face fell. She gathered her cocoa cup and sipped the last drop. Logan stood with her. "Amber," he said quietly, his voice rough but sincere. "Thank you for making Emma smile like that." Amber tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "She makes it easy," she said, meaning it. Logan's eyes softened, warmth flickering there, something unfamiliar but welcome. Emma jumped up suddenly and ran to Amber. "Will you come back?" she asked eagerly. "We'll make space for you." Amber knelt and hugged her close. "Only if you promise to save the whipped cream for me next time." Emma giggled and nodded, eyes bright. Logan watched them, his daughter, and the woman who had quietly stepped into their once empty world. He realized then that the seat beside him hadn't just been filled, it had been opened. Amber left the café with a faint blush on her cheeks. Not from the cocoa, but from something deeper. Behind her, the booth sat in the golden light, 2 cups half finished and a coffee untouched. Logan reached out, closed the book he'd been pretending to read, and looked toward the door where she'd gone. For the first time in months, his morning didn't taste like regret. Later that week, Amber stepped out into the cool morning air after her early shift at the bakery. Her apron was slung over her shoulder, and the scent of warm pastries still clung to her. The street was quiet, just the hum of delivery trucks and the soft chatter of a waking city. She was halfway through pulling her phone. From her bag went something by the cafe window, stopped her cold. A small figure sat curled up against the glass. Pink dress, blonde hair tied with a bow, a backpack hugged tight to her chest like a shield. "Emma." "Emma?" Amber's voice cracked from shock and worry as she rushed over and knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, what are you doing here?" "Where's your dad?" Emma lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were red, her cheeks flushed. "I left school," she murmured. I wanted to see you." Amber's heart clenched. "Oh, honey," Emma sniffled, looking down. "They said I don't have a mom because she didn't love me enough to stay." The words hit Amber like a blow. For a moment she couldn't breathe. The pain in that small voice was too big for someone so young. Without hesitation, Amber sat beside her and wrapped the little girl in her arms. "That's not true, sweetheart. That's not true at all." She pressed her cheek against Emma's hair. "Sometimes people leave not because they want to, but because life doesn't give them a choice." Emma didn't speak. She just clung to Amber's sweater, her breathing uneven and small. Amber gently reached for her phone and dialed Logan's number. He answered on the first ring. "She's safe," Amber said quickly before he could panic. But you need to come now. 15 minutes later, Logan's car screeched to a stop in front of the cafe. He jumped out, eyes scanning frantically until they found them. "Emma!" he called, rushing over. When he reached them, relief and fear collided in his voice. "Emma, you can't just disappear like that. Do you know how scared I was?" Emma looked down, tears welling again. Amber rose slowly and stepped between them. She didn't run or retreat. Her voice was calm but firm. "Logan," she said softly. She didn't run away to rebel. She ran to be understood. Logan blinked, caught off guard. His mouth parted slightly as her words sank in. He turned toward his daughter, really looked at her, and finally saw it. The weight she carried in her tiny shoulders, the sadness she never knew how to express. He knelt down and pulled her close. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't hear how lonely you've been." Emma clutched him tightly, her small arms circling his neck. Then she turned her head just enough to look at Amber. "She listens," she said softly. "Like Mommy used to." Amber's eyes filled, but she smiled through it, brushing a gentle hand through Emma's hair. Logan stood slowly, still holding his daughter, and turned to Amber. His voice was rough but sincere. "Thank you, really, for being there when she needed someone." Amber gave a small nod. "Of course." Logan hesitated for a moment. "I know it's a lot to ask," he continued, "but would you let me buy you dinner? Just to say thank you for today?" Amber glanced between him and Emma, a soft smile curving her lips. "Not today," she said kindly. "But thank you for asking." Logan didn't press. He just nodded, watching her walk away. Emma peeked over his shoulder, watching too. "Will we see her again, Daddy?" Logan looked toward the woman disappearing down the street. He didn't answer right away. Then, after a long pause, he murmured, "I hope so." The park was alive that afternoon. Families spread across the grass for Family Day, the school's big celebration of togetherness. Balloons floated in clusters, children darted between picnic blankets, and the smell of popcorn drifted through the air. Amber hadn't come for the event. She was just there to unwind with her daughter, Ella, after a long shift at the bakery. Ella, 4 years old, wore a pale yellow dress and her trademark bouncy curls. Her brown eyes lit up when she spotted the sandbox. "Mommy, can I play?" she asked, already halfway there. Amber laughed. "Of course. Just don't throw sand this time." Ella ran ahead, bucket in hand. Inside the sandbox, another little girl was already there. Pink dress, tiny shovel, focused on her castle. Emma. The two girls eyed each other for a moment. Then Emma tilted her head, studying Ella's curls. "Your hair looks like hers," she said curiously. "Are you her daughter?" Ella nodded, still clutching her bucket. Emma smiled. "Then we're kind of sisters." Without hesitation, they started building together. Buckets passed back and forth, giggles spilled out. And soon they were deep in conversation about sandcastles, dragons, and silly royal names for their sandy kingdom. Amber watched from a nearby bench, a soft smile on her face. For a moment, everything felt peaceful, until the whispers started. "Isn't that the single mom from the diner?" someone murmured. "I think so. She's with the CEO's daughter. Strange, right? She sure knows where to be seen." Amber stiffened. The warmth drained from her chest, replaced by the familiar sting of judgment. Then came a voice from behind her, sharp, cool, and condescending. "So this is how you find a better future? Through your daughter's playground?" Amber turned slowly. A woman stood there in designer sunglasses, arms crossed. Her tone carried the kind of confidence that came from money and cruelty. Amber's throat tightened. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She reached for Ella instead. "Come on, sweetheart. It's time to go," Ella pouted. "But we're not done with the towers." Amber didn't answer. She picked her up and turned to leave. And then Logan's voice cut through the crowd. "I heard everything." He stood a few feet away, hands clenched at his sides, his expression hard and cold. His usual composure was gone. "If your child had half the kindness of hers," he said evenly, nodding toward Amber, "I might actually respect you." The woman blinked, stunned. Words lost behind her polished exterior. Logan didn't wait for a response. He turned and caught up to Amber. She had stopped but hadn't turned around. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. No one should talk to you like that. Amber's voice was low. People like me don't usually belong in parks like that, she murmured. Or at tables like yours. Logan stepped closer. Then maybe it's time I stop sitting at tables where kindness isn't served. That made her finally look up. Their eyes met, his full of apology, hers shining with a mix of disbelief and gratitude. Emma and Ella, Amber said softly, trying to smile. They're natural with each other. It's the adults who ruin things, Logan nodded. Maybe it's time we learn from them. Ella squirmed in Amber's arms. Can we come back and play again? Amber looked at Logan. He offered a small, genuine smile. Any time. Amber hesitated, then set Ella down. The little girl ran back to Emma, and within seconds, they were laughing again, two children, unbothered by the noise of the world around them. Amber watched them, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't walk away. She stayed, she didn't run, and neither did Logan. After that day in the park, Emma couldn't stop talking about Ella. She mentioned her at breakfast, during bath time, even as Logan tucked her into bed. Every night came the same hopeful question, eyes wide and bright. Can we see Ella again? And her mommy too? Logan hesitated each time. He wasn't sure what this was, or what it could become. But one night, after Emma had fallen asleep clutching a drawing of her and Ella holding hands, Logan stared at the crayon smiles and thought, maybe this matters more than what makes sense, so he picked up his phone and called Amber. I was thinking, maybe dinner, somewhere simple, just the four of us. There was a pause on the other end. Simple? Amber asked cautiously. Nothing fancy, Logan said. Just dinner, a small place on Maple Street. My assistant says the food's decent. Another pause. Then, in the background, a small voice squealed, Mommy, is it Emma? Are we going? Amber sighed, but her tone softened. All right, just dinner. The restaurant was small and warm, tucked between a bookstore and a florist, its sign flickering gently above the door. Inside, golden lights glowed against wooden walls. Emma spotted Ella first. She dashed forward, grabbing her hand as if they'd never been apart. I saved you a seat, she said proudly, pulling her to the booth. Amber smiled and took a seat across from Logan. She wore a simple navy dress, her blonde hair pulled back, no makeup except a soft tint on her lips. Logan studied her quietly. She looked tired but grounded, real. The girls chattered nonstop about school, playground rules, and how Ella had once named a goldfish Banana. Logan chuckled under his breath. Amber listened with patience and warmth, her laughter soft but genuine. He realized something then. Amber was a grown-up version of Emma, the same empathy, the same calm, the same way of hearing more than just words. It startled him, in the best way. When the girls ran off to the gumball machine near the door, Amber leaned back and sighed. I didn't plan for this, she said, watching them. My life, it's messy. Logan stirred his coffee. Maybe messy is just another word for real. I've had enough of perfect. Amber looked at him, the corner of her mouth lifting. Ella asked me once why she didn't have a dad like other kids. What did you tell her? I told her. She paused. Some stories begin with just one hero, but that doesn't mean they have to end that way. Logan didn't answer. He just twisted an empty sugar packet between his fingers, lost in thought. Outside, rain had begun to fall, soft and steady. By the time they stepped out, the sidewalk gleamed under the streetlights. Emma squealed as raindrops hit her cheeks. We're getting wet. Logan smiled, took off his coat, and wrapped it around both girls. Then, with a small grunt, he scooped Emma up and took Ella's hand. Amber blinked, surprised by how natural it was. No hesitation, no awkwardness, just instinct. She walked beside them, the four of them laughing beneath one umbrella. By the time they reached Logan's car, they were all soaked. But no one cared. The girls giggled in the back seat, wrapped in the oversized coat. Amber watched as Logan buckled Ella in. You didn't have to carry her, she said softly. He looked at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I wanted to. Amber didn't respond. But something inside her, something she'd kept tightly locked away, shifted. A warmth, an unfamiliar ease. For the first time in a long while, she wondered if maybe not all beautiful things were meant to fade. The photos hit the internet less than 24 hours later. A candid shot. Logan, Amber, Emma, and Ella sitting at a small table. The girls laughing mid-bite, Amber leaning in to wipe Ella's cheek. Logan looking on with a rare softness. The headline screamed, "Widowed CEO caught dining with single mom and 2 kids, a new family?" By morning, it was everywhere. Within hours, the past Amber had buried was dug back up. Forums questioned her intentions. Blogs unearthed her incomplete nursing degree, an old eviction notice, a string of diner and gas station jobs. Words like unqualified and opportunist floated beside her name. At Logan's company, the boardroom felt colder than usual. The board chair tapped her pen sharply. "Mr. Cole, your personal associations are creating unnecessary media turbulence. Investors are watching." Logan's jaw clenched. "Are you saying dinner is a liability?" "We're saying optics matter. You are the face of this company. Your late wife came from legacy. This woman—" The chair paused, voice dripping with caution. "Does not." The room fell silent. Logan said nothing. When the meeting ended, he stood, loosened his tie in one slow motion, and walked out without a word. That night, Amber sat on the edge of her small couch. Staring at the TV, a reporter smiled too brightly. Who is Amber Wells? A small-town waitress with a complicated past. Is she the right match for the man behind a billion-dollar firm? On the floor, Ella played with her stuffed giraffe, blissfully unaware. Amber turned off the TV. The apartment went quiet except for the soft hum of the rain outside. Her fingers trembled as she folded Ella's clothes into a small bag. She'd been here before, leaving before the world could break her any worse. She was halfway through zipping the duffel bag when a knock came. Logan stood in the doorway, drenched from the rain. He didn't wait for an invitation. His eyes swept across the room and landed on the packed bag. Amber straightened, folding her arms tightly across her chest. "You shouldn't be here." "I saw the news," he said quietly. "I'm leaving before it gets worse." Logan took a step closer. "Worse for who?" Amber's voice wavered. "For you. You have a reputation to protect. I only have Ella." He looked at her for a long moment before speaking again, his voice rising, not in anger, but urgency. "And you think my daughter needs stockholders more than she needs someone like you?" Amber opened her mouth but couldn't find the words. Logan took another step. Rain still clung to his coat. "They said you don't belong in my world," he whispered. "But the truth is, I stopped belonging in that world a long time ago." Amber's defenses began to crumble. The storm outside howled, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside her, grief, fear, hope, all colliding at once. "She listens to me," Amber finally said, her voice breaking. "Emma listens. That's all I've ever really wanted, for someone to feel heard." Logan nodded, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. "She told me you listen like her mother used to." Amber bit her lip, tears welling. "I don't want to be anyone's replacement." "You're not," Logan said simply. "You're the first person who ever showed up without asking for anything." A quiet moment stretched between them, fragile and full. Then from the back of the apartment, a sleepy little voice called out, "Mommy, is the rain talking to someone?" Amber laughed through her tears. Logan smiled faintly. "Tell her it's just someone who's done running." The backyard wasn't much. A small patch of grass bordered by a weathered wooden fence, a folding table covered with a floral cloth, and a handful of balloons swaying in the spring breeze. But to Emma and Ella, it was magic, a kingdom of color, laughter, and something that felt suspiciously like home. Their birthdays were only 10 days apart, and after weeks of pleading and secret planning under blankets and between classroom breaks, they had convinced their parents to throw a joint celebration. "Like real sisters do," Emma had said, eyes shining with certainty, as if the universe had already decided it for them. Amber had hesitated. It felt too soon, too intimate, too exposed. Sharing space, memories, even a cake, meant letting down walls she'd built for years. But Logan had looked at her and simply said, it would mean the world to them. And in his voice, she heard no pressure, just quiet truth. So here they were. The party was small, intentionally so. A few close neighbors, some of Emma's classmates, and one old golden retriever from next door who refused to leave the festivities. No caterers, no photographers, just homemade cupcakes on mismatched plates, paper streamers fluttering in the wind, and a kind of joy that couldn't be bought. Amber set a tray of juice boxes on the table, watching the girls race through the grass. Their matching dresses, pink for Emma, yellow for Ella, twirled with every spin. Their laughter echoed off the fence, bouncing back like applause. Logan arrived carrying 2 gifts. Wrapped neatly under his arm, he handed the first to Emma, a sketchbook with thick, textured pages and a tin of colored pencils. Her face lit up as she hugged it close. "For all the dreams you haven't drawn yet," he said softly. Emma beamed. Then he handed the second to Ella, a bright red toy medical kit complete with a stethoscope, bandages, and a name badge that read, Dr. Ella. "Because your mom once dreamed of helping people too," he explained. Glancing at Amber with something unspoken in his eyes, Ella's eyes widened. "Really?" Amber smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, her voice catching slightly. "Really?" The 2 girls immediately began playing doctor and patient under the warm garden lights, giggling over invisible fevers and dramatic recoveries. Then, just as the cake was being brought out, Amber reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. "Before we cut the cake," she said, standing near the table, "I have something for both of you." Emma and Ella ran over, hands sticky with frosting. Amber opened the box to reveal 2 tiny heart-shaped pendants, each engraved in delicate script. "You were never missing. You were always meant to find each other." The yard fell silent. Emma blinked rapidly. Ella clutched her pendant as if it were made of stardust. Then, without a word, the 2 girls wrapped their arms around each other, faces buried in each other's shoulders. Their small bodies shook with the kind of tears only children cry, pure, honest, healing in a way adults often forget. Amber knelt beside them, pulling both girls close and resting her forehead gently against theirs. Logan stepped forward and knelt too. Emma looked up at him through tear-filled lashes. "Now we both have a mommy and a daddy," Emma whispered. Amber's breath caught. Logan's lips parted, then pressed closed as he reached forward, one arm around Emma, the other around Amber. He looked at her, not like a man overwhelmed, but like someone finally found. "You've given us..." His voice broke, then steadied, tender and sure. "More than family. You gave us back our hearts." Amber didn't speak. She didn't need to, because in that moment, surrounded by tangled balloons, soft music, and a cake waiting to be cut, they all knew that love didn't always need grand declarations. Sometimes, it just needed a seat at the table and a second candle to share. The café looked different now. The faded awnings had been replaced with soft cream-colored ones that fluttered gently in the morning breeze. Fresh flowers, lavender, marigolds, and a few wild daisies lined the windowsills in chipped ceramic pots that Amber had painted with Emma and Ella on a lazy Sunday. Inside, sunlight poured through the clean panes, casting a warm golden glow across wooden tables that had been sanded, restained and polished with care. At one of those tables, Amber stood with her sleeves rolled to her elbows, her blonde hair tied loosely at the nape of her neck. She moved with the quiet rhythm of someone who had grown into her space, pouring warm milk into 2 small mugs, steam curling upward like soft questions between them. Ella, dressed in her favorite yellow dress, reached eagerly for her cup, the warmth of it almost as comforting as the woman handing it to her. Beside her, Emma sat cross-legged on the bench, gently tapping out a tune on a miniature toy piano by the window. Her pink dress caught the light, glowing like the inside of a seashell. The café wasn't just a café anymore. It was a ritual, a rhythm, a safe place where hearts found rest and laughter lingered longer than the coffee foam. After the old owner retired, a community group that supported single mothers stepped in. They saw something in Amber, her steady hands, her quiet warmth, the way she made even silence feel safe. With their help, she took over the lease, but Amber hadn't just taken over a business. She'd built a haven, a place where neighbors left books for each other on a little shelf by the door, where toddlers curled up on mismatched cushions with picture books, where teenagers came after school to study at the big back table, where birthday candles flickered over muffins and love letters were scribbled onto napkins. Just after the morning rush, Logan stepped in. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly tousled from the wind. He paused at the door, not to catch his breath, but because the sight before him took it away. Amber looked up and met his gaze, her lips curving softly. "Running late?" she asked, nodding toward the empty cup beside the coffee machine. He stepped forward, his smirk crooked and familiar. "Your coffee's worth the wait." Emma spotted him and squealed. "Daddy, our table's still here." She leapt off the bench and ran to him. Logan scooped her up, kissed the top of her head, then carried her back to the table where Ella sat grinning. Her hands wrapped around her mug. He pulled out a chair and sat, watching the scene unfold. Amber tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, Ella giggling at something, Emma whispering secrets only little sisters share, the sunlight spilling like honey across the table. He murmured quietly. Amber looked up. "It always will be," he said. She didn't answer with words. She didn't need to, because in this place built from broken pieces and gentle mornings, from tiny hands and steady hearts, there was nothing left to prove. No contracts, no ceremonies, just love. Real, daily, whole. The camera pulls back, wide and slow. Outside, the world hurries on. Inside, time exhales. At a table meant for four, a family sips cocoa, shares stories, and holds on to something that once felt impossible. Forever. One morning at a time, fade out. If this story touched your heart, the way a child's words can melt even the coldest silence, and how love can bloom in the most unexpected places, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who still believes in second chances. And for more heartfelt stories of kindness, healing, and love that lingers long after the credits roll, subscribe to Kindness and Love Tales, because every story is a reminder that hope is never too far away. Sometimes, it's just one table, one smile, and someone willing to stay. Thank you for watching.